Growing up, I'm sure a lot of you remember the drug prevention companies coming to your school and explaining to you how drugs can become addictive. They would tell you about the different kinds of drugs, the illegal drugs, the addictive drugs, the illegal and addictive drugs. But the one thing that they would stress more than anything was the consequences of breaking the law of possession of these drugs. Let's look at the word possession, though, in context here. If I possess these illegal substances, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm using them. I understand the law is clear about this, but I also understand that across the country in low-income communities, people are falling victim to simply being guilty by association for possession of these illegal substances. JourneyPure.com actually tells us that 80% of drug-related arrests are simply for possession of illegal substances. These people that are arrested for possession go off to jail, and if they actually use the drugs they possess, then they're in for an even longer sentence. The problem with this system is that it's flawed. Its biggest flaw being that the only thing it encourages in a drug addict is a relapse. Once an addict, always an addict. They'll always be addicted to that drug, but whether they choose to act on that addiction and continue to use that drug all depends on the help that they would receive through drug rehab. That help they're not going to receive in a jail cell, not the way that they need it. There are a few really good reasons to support a proposal like this. One of them is that it will not only cut drug-related crime, but it will cut costs and spending for incarceration, saving money. DualDiagnosis.org actually says this solution would save the country billions of dollars every year. How? Rehab is cheaper than incarceration, and because of that, if less people are going to be incarcerated, less money is being spent on incarceration, more people are going to rehab, which is a cheaper option, and money is saved all across the board. But if they're going to jail, they serve their sentence, they go right back to doing drugs again, and then they go back to a jail cell again. And what we end up with is a vicious cycle of drug use that costs more than simply saving a life, helping someone with rehab, and helping them get their life back on track. SkywoodRecovery.com actually says that 95% of inmates that are in jail for a drug-related crime will go right back to doing drugs once their sentence is served. So clearly jails aren't a great solution here. Rehab is the better way to go. If you need a personal reason to support a proposal like this, ACLU.org wrote a great article about a woman named Misty Bergman. Now, Misty Bergman grew up with scoliosis, and she took oxycodone for the pain, and before too long, she became addicted to the oxycodone. The addiction got so bad that she moved to Seattle, hoping to find the drug in a larger quantity. She didn't find the drug, and in desperation turned to the next most readily available drug in the city of Seattle, which happened to be heroin, and she subsequently became addicted to heroin. Her life became that cycle that I talked about before. She lived in a tent, went to a jail cell, served her time, went back to the tent, went back to the jail cell again, and on, her life didn't change until Seattle came up with a better solution. The city and the police started a program called LEAD. LEAD cuts out a court hearing and incarceration, saving money, and directly puts drug addicts into the rehab they need to help them get their lives back on track. It's because of programs like LEAD that Misty Bergman has now been sober for years. She truly knows a better life, and the cycle that once dominated every part of her being is no more. Her story is one of many unique stories all across the country. In an article on drugrehab.org, there's a quote from FAM that says, "Each offender in crime is unique, and prison and jail time may not always be the most effective response. Clearly the rehab works, and clearly the jails make things a whole lot worse." The final point I want to make in closing is that I want you to think about this issue personally. What if you were struggling with drug addiction? Or what if a loved one was struggling with drug addiction? Would you say the law is the law? Ship them off to jail? Or would you want them to have this better alternative option? Every year the country wastes millions of dollars incarcerating people, putting drug addicts in jail, when we should be helping them. Sending a drug addict to prison doesn't teach them a lesson. It only encourages them to relapse once they've served their sentence. Instead of putting them in jail, we should put them in rehab and help them get their lives back on track. Because it's not a war on drugs, if it's the people that end up in a jail cell. The war on drugs is one of failure. The story of Misty Berkman is one of success. Programs like LEAD should be started all across the country, and I bet that if they were, we would see major progress in our fight against drug addiction. The path to success is one of rehabilitation, not incarceration. Thank y'all for listening. If you have any questions, I'll answer them now.
And so what made you choose this topic?
I've seen a lot of documentaries about this cycle of drugs, about people in and out of jail for doing drugs, and that it's just kind of never ending and it never really breaks and it always stays the same. And I've seen also this proposal, for rehab as a different option. And I mean, I think the reasons are very clear on why it's a better option, and I think that it would really be beneficial in breaking that cycle. So yeah, that's really why I chose the topic.
Right.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Would this proposal lead to more drug use due to more lenient consequences?
The law for illegal drug usage would remain the same with this proposal. The only difference would be that someone convicted for this crime would also have the option of rehab instead of jail, which would in turn, make the chances of them ending up in that situation again, it would lower that a lot because they get help in rehab. If they go to jail, they're probably just going to relapse and end up in jail again. So it wouldn't make it more lenient. It just offers another option to help break that cycle. But yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. If that's all the questions, thank you all for listening. Yeah, that's it.